Welcome to Life's Messy, Live Happy. I'm so excited today because we've revamped the show to include my favorite parts, which is question and answer. Your questions, my answers. I wanted to redesign the show because one thing I've noticed is I can give you the overview of the philosophy, but people who are watching our content are craving to figure out how they apply it in their daily lives. Like they get it, but they aren't getting it completely. So what we're gonna do is take your questions, real questions, and I'm gonna answer them and show you how to apply some of the things I'm teaching you so that even though life's super messy, you can live happy. So what I need from you is your questions. Submit them by clicking the link below. And I'll promise you that I keep it anonymous, but I'm not gonna let you off the hook from being accountable. So give us your questions. I think you're gonna love what you learn on this episode.
Carrie from Grand Forks, North Dakota asks, how can I remain optimistic and maintain faith in leadership when a peer was hired without adequate industry experience?
Carrie, I absolutely love your question. It is definitely from the heart. I want to help unpack and deconstruct some things you're believing that if we questioned them, might just set you free. So let's take a look at your question. First of all, you asked me, how can I maintain my faith in management when they're doing things I don't like or I don't agree with? And here's the first place I think you can find some freedom. First of all, if your faith is dependent upon another person's behavior, you are setting yourself up for profound disappointment. See, you have your faith dependent upon another person being perfect, doing what you want them to do, following life according to your script. And at that rate, you're not going to be able to have faith in anyone because no one is ever going to live life according to Carrie. So here's something that might blow your mind. Faith, it's a choice. And it might just be that it's not about having faith in your manager. So your real question might be, how can I maintain faith in myself when I make everything so dependent upon other people? See, looking at this question differently might really open up some freedom at work for you. If you look at what's true is you might not have faith in yourself because you're really easily thrown off your game by a single hiring decision. And so if you want to be able to have faith in others, start with yourself. It's about having faith in your own skill set to be great regardless of somebody else's behavior. You know, when I was a counselor, I often worked with mostly women in this situation, but women who had been in an abusive relationship, and long after the crisis, when I was working with them, they would tell me that their biggest concern is the ability to trust men again or women again, depending on their preferences. And I would often help them understand that trusting others isn't really their issue. If you're gonna wait until you can trust half of the human race, then you're gonna be waiting a long time. But if you want a relationship, take a different approach. The real issue is I need to be able to trust myself around you. So instead of focusing on why I can't trust men or women or entire groups of people, what if you questioned yourself and said, what do I need to do to be able to trust myself around others? And when you work that part of the equation, you have a whole lot more of the world open up. See, I can trust many people in my lives, not because they're perfect and do what I want and are always trustworthy, but because I trust my own skills around them. I trust that I can be honest and assertive. I can just be free because I trust my own skill set. So this may blow your minds, but your issue is awesome because this isn't about restoring faith or maintaining faith in your leaders. This is about you growing as an individual so that you can have faith in yourself. Your real question needs to be, how can I maintain faith in myself when I'm so easily thrown off my game by a single hiring decision? So as you look at what might be the truth, that you need to work on your own faith in you and that you need to stop judging, start helping, you might open up whole new worlds as you self-reflect and get beyond ego. Because here's the choice that you have right now if you're interested in the reality of the situation. You can step down and use all of that. They don't have industry knowledge, and I had to leave, and I can't trust anybody, and they make horrible decisions. So here's your choice right now. I always look at situations where first I need to find out where my ego's out to play and where I'm judging. Secondly, ask myself, is it even true? What is my ego having me believe that doesn't even play out? What's my part in this? What am I here to learn? And then you have a choice. You can step up and go greet this colleague with open arms, figure out where you complement one another and move beyond and create great work together. Or you can step down, and you'll know that you've stepped down if you start BMW driving, bitching, moaning, and whining about the decision to other people. Because folks, BMW driving is the symptom of having just stepped down. It's how we cover it up and justify it. So my hope is you stop BMW driving, you look at what you need to learn from this, and I think your key lesson and takeaway is stop making your faith dependent on other people's behavior, and instead restore your own faith in yourself by upping your own skill set to be able to do great work in spite of the decisions or behaviors of another. That's when you'll be beyond ego and really free.
An anonymous fan from Fresno, California asks, why does my boss insist on micromanaging everything? It makes things so stressful and hectic at work. How can I talk to her about this without offending her? The days she is not there, things run so smoothly.
Anonymous in Fresno, thank you for your question. I might add that you might not have had to be anonymous because I think 50% of you out there have a question similar to this. It's very common. A lot of people ask me, how do I deal with my micromanaging boss? How can I get them to change? And the answer is pretty simple, but it's not going to be the one your ego loves. See, your ego's out to play here. Your ego is narrating a world so much more harsh than your reality. If you read your question, you have a boss that insists on micromanaging, and your best days are ones that they're not even present. And do you hear the victim part of that whole question? And it's okay, because when you ask me your honest questions, it's how I can really unwrap these and get to the bottom. So let's take a look at this topic of micromanagement. I get asked this a lot. And when I get asked this, it reminds me of a time in my life where I was convinced my boss was a micromanager. Take you back there. I was really working on moving beyond my ego, realizing when my ego was out to play. And the reason I wanted to move beyond my ego was that when I believed my own stories, I suffered. And when I was able to edit my story and drop my story, I was happy. And that was big for me because I could be suffering or happy in the same job with the same boss, my choice. And so I liked the power of that I could choose with the same boss to be happy or not. So I was really working on it, but I was struggling with my boss. I really believed firmly he was a micromanager, and I won't even get into the details. Working with my mentor, and I said, my boss is a micromanager. And she said, well, why don't you just keep track this week of times that you felt insulted, or that he upset you, or that you felt like you're mistreated. So at the end of the week, I had this whole list of how my boss micromanaged. He treats me like a child. He asks me questions that are total setups. He asks me in front of other groups to make me look bad. He's always calling and double checking on me. He doesn't believe the answers when I give it. He'll come back with stuff he's checked on or other people he's talked to. It's like he's just over involved in my life. And the first thing my mentor asked me to do is edit my story. He treats me like a child. That's my judgment. What happened? He called me a half hour before my presentation to check if I was ready. That's all that happened. He called me to check if I was ready. I'm the one, with my ego, believing my own thinking, that turned that into he treats me like a child. I got to the point after I edited my story that here's my reality. My boss prefers more detail than I like to give. He wasn't a micromanager. That's what my ego called him every time I was asked to be accountable for something that I didn't prefer. It was a little tantrum my ego was throwing. Now, it doesn't mean that I don't want to improve my working relationship with my boss. And your question, how can I talk to my boss about this, was my question. How can I get him to change? How can I talk to him about it? And that is another play by your ego. See, anytime I'm scheming about what another person needs to do differently, about how they need to live differently or be differently, or not only am I over in their lane, but I'm way off track because I'm the one that can operate in the world differently. I'm the one who can grow and develop. I'm the one who can move to a higher level of consciousness. I don't need anybody else to do anything. If I start thinking other people are my issue, I'm not thinking clearly with good mental process. So I wanted to go talk to my boss, and she recommended not talking to my boss. She recommended asking my boss rather than talking to him. So here's what I did. I went in and I said, what are a couple of things I could do that would enhance your confidence in my work so that you might feel more comfortable and taking just one step back and giving me a bit more space and a bit more rope. What can I do to enhance your confidence? And here's when I discovered my ego was at play. He said, oh, that's easy. You can just put your status report up on the shared drive every Tuesday and Thursday, and I'll go there. And that's when I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I don't want to do that. That seems hard. And then I realized that I had a part to play in this. Now, let's take it one step further. After I was asking him this and I was listening for his response, and I was willing to follow the simple instructions. He said, put it up on the shared drive, and I simply said, thank you for the simple instructions. I'll follow those perfectly. I'll put on the shared drive Tuesday through Thursday my updates, and then let's check in more often and see if that's enhanced your confidence. See, so many times the easy list is what they need to do differently. The hard list, for our ego anyway, is what we need to do differently. But we can't set boundaries for another person. We can just step up ourselves. So another thing from your question that struck me is when you mentioned that your days run smoothly when your boss isn't around. And I want you just to meditate and sit with one possibility. I want to just open your mind up to, if you just self-reflect, what if it's not your boss being gone that frees you up to have a smooth day? What if it's your story being gone that frees you up to have a smooth day? And what I mean by this is you think it's when your boss is gone, but what if when your boss isn't present, you don't have the story that I'm being micromanaged, you have the story I'm free? What if the difference between a day with your boss and a day without your boss had nothing to do with your boss? What if it had to do with your story about your boss? What if, in this messy world we call life and work, you could live happy with a boss on site or a boss off site by simply questioning your thinking, moving beyond your ego, self-reflecting, and figuring out, what if this wasn't about him micromanaging or her micromanaging? What if this was about they simply prefer more detail? What if it was about asking what you could do to enhance someone's confidence? What if it was about simply being willing to do whatever it takes to succeed? See, sometimes in my life, I have had bosses who keep a closer eye on me than other times in my life. What if I could succeed with either situation? What if I could just say, given I'm with a boss right now who has this behavior, how could I succeed? Because right now, you're talking about the fact you can't succeed based on the reality of your boss. But here's what I like to do with the reality, add given to it. Given I have a boss who behaves this way, how can I be joyful, happy, and successful? So here's what's exciting about this is I am hoping that if my message does nothing else, it helps people understand that suffering is completely optional. There are two ways to go through today, joy or misery, your choice. But you know what it depends on? It depends on what you're believing. So I would be very careful when you start believing everything you think. Thank you so much for joining me on this revamped episode of Life's Messy, Live Happy, where I am going to be answering your questions. Because my hope is I can teach you how to practice the principles of reality-based leadership and reality-based life in your day-to-day jobs and home. So give me your real, authentic, raw questions, and I just might answer them on the show. You can do that by clicking the link below. I so look forward to hearing what's really going on in your head. I'm releasing a new episode every Wednesday on Facebook and YouTube, so you're gonna need to keep checking in to see if your question made it to the show. And in the meantime, you'll be learning a ton about how to live happy even when life is messy.